COVID-19 announcement.
Hello everybody, it's Bethany from Beth and Books and welcome back to this Book Nook and for another wrap-up video. As always, this video comes out in tandem with my latest Will Chooses TBR video, and I am so pale. Let me just fix this exposure. I am so professional. Apologies, team. As I was saying, this has come out in tandem with my latest Will Chooses TBR video, which I will link somewhere for you as well. It's a really good basket of books I'm super excited for. But anyway, as you can see from the thumbnail, I have a lot of books to go through today. And in the past, whenever I'm editing these videos, I always find myself chopping out so much because I just keep rambling. So I'm going to make it my absolute goal to keep every review under 1 minute. So even then it would be a decently long video. So I will link these books down below to the Goodreads, and hopefully I've caught up on my Goodreads reviews if you want to like skip ahead and just read hopefully a more concise review. Anyway, thank you so much for clicking onto this video. If you like it here, please consider leaving a cheeky like and subscribe down below. The goal is 1,000 of you to join this little bookish community by the end of the year, and we're so close. But without further ado, as I say, I keep wobbling, and we'll just get on with the video, shall we? Alrighty, the first selection of books here are these four. I read these four for a themed reading vlog called Reading YA Fiction That I Never Got To. In my mind, this is YA fiction I see everywhere, or at least saw everywhere when I was a teen. The first one to mention is I never actually read Fallen because it turns out I had read this before and I had absolutely hated it, so I wasn't about to reread it. I think I had given it 2 stars. So the ones I read, let's start with my least favourite of these 3, which is Hush Hush. I ultimately gave this one... Fallen is fallen. Oh, lockdown has gotten to me. Lockdown has gotten to me. You know what? You can just stay like that. Where was I? Oh yeah, Hush Hush. I gave this one 2 stars. I hated it, guys. But there was enough in it to keep me reading it cover to cover, so it wasn't a 1 star or a DNF. The main reason I disliked it is because there's all of this build-up, and it's so obvious, spoiler, that the dude, what was his name? Patch, is a fallen angel. It's so obvious, and Nora just doesn't, I don't know, she's just stupid. She is just so irritating, and then Patch is just that classic bad boy vibe that I also hate. Like, I'm really sick of seeing in these young adult fiction novels, especially the ones in like written in the 2000s, I found a pattern where the male character keeps telling the female character, you like me, I'm a good guy, you know, you want to kiss me. Like, that's okay. No, that's harassment. Darlings, that's harassment. If a guy ever comes up to you and is like, oh, you'll like me, and you're getting weird vibes, don't keep talking to him. He's a predator. Okay, I feel like I've said what needed to be said. Oh, okay, next up. Sorry guys, I'm just checking all my star ratings on my laptop down below. I have The Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants, which a lot of my colleagues absolutely love. I'm not being rude at all, but they are all... I'm essentially the youngest teacher at my high school, I'm pretty sure, aside from like the trainees and a teacher aide, maybe. I'm one of the youngest, and so everyone else who's older than me is at least generally 4 to 5 years older than me. What I'm trying to say here, guys, is that this seemed to be really popular with the generation just above me, like 5 years to 10 years older than me. So I was really hyped picking up this book, and that's why I picked it up. I gave it 3 stars because out of the 4 perspectives we see, I only enjoyed 2 of them. And very similar to the Hush Hush vibes, there was a lot of sexual relationships being explored that I didn't feel comfortable with. There's a whole scene where one guy is just taken completely out of context. Like, one dude is going for a swim at his lake, where one of the girls from the book is skinny dipping, having a wee swim. She thought it was a secluded place, and then essentially she goes home and insinuates that the guy raped her when he clearly didn't. And yes, I get that that was one of the learning points, but it still wasn't enjoyable. And then the surprise of them all, Evernight, I ended up giving 5 stars. I feel like I say this a lot, but I love the setting of a school, whether it's dark academic or just a school in general, like a cliched school. I just love it. I'm a teacher, I love school, I don't know why, it's just something I do, really enjoy, and something that really annoys me is when books say that they are set in schools and then it's literally just like a side thought. I'm looking at you, Love Boat Taipei. When the blurb promises you something and it doesn't deliver. But this one really delivered. I loved it, and I actually found myself enjoying the tropes in here, the not necessarily enemies to lovers, but standoffish to each other, to boyfriend girlfriends. I guess that's a bit spoilery, but honestly guys, I think if a book has been published over 10 years ago, it's okay to talk about it. 2008. It's been published for 13 years. Essentially, I really loved the ending of it as well, how they, I'll try being mild with this, how they were in a situation where both of their families, there being the people in the relationship, I'm really bad at remembering character names, sorry, but where both people in the relationship are having a family fallout, but they stick together. I really liked that so much. In the haul video, I actually did purchase book 2 and 4 secondhand. I just need to find book 3. From there, we went on to the tragedy that was Mills and Boons. You will notice, I mean, I may as well talk about both of them together. They were both 2 stars. I hated them. My Secret Pleasure and this one, which is actually the cover up here, after reading them, caused me to dye my hair. I had a genuine quarter-life spiral crisis. Like, I'm not saying this is the only reason. I feel like I had a lot of emotional baggage at the time, and this was the catalyst. It was just the way that men treat women in both of these books, and I think it's a trend amongst all of these like 1980s, 90s and Mills and Boons novels. It's just abusive, and I'm so sick and tired of books romanticizing emotional abuse, manipulation, that like when a guy doesn't want you and the woman's constantly pining, like, no bitch, just leave him alone, you're so much better than that. And it just gets me really, really mad, as you can tell. Don't waste your time. Trash. Trash. I feel like I need to breathe after that. Bring it back, Bethany. I closed the doors because Titus is gaming online with a couple of mates, and I feel like everyone on that server can hear me ranting about abusive men. So yeah. Carrying on, I actually don't have a physical copy, but I read Red, White and Royal Blue, and I really loved this book and gave it 5 stars. After talking to a few people, oh, I should mention that was a Beth and Book Club pick for August. After talking to a few people, it was interesting to have different perspectives on the novel. I'm going to try to keep this concise. It follows a, oh, my feet have gone numb, so I'm sitting on my butt now. It follows 2 dudes. One of them is a Prince of England and one of them is the Prime Minister's son. You can see Elmo. Focus, Bethany. Honestly, I'm a meerkat. And long story short, there's a romance surrounding them, and it's quite a political romance, and I really loved it. It was, the interesting conversations were around the fetishization of homosexual, oh my gosh, homosexual relationships, especially when they're male-male, and that a lot of the times straight members of the book community seem to really enjoy male-male romances, whereas the female-female romances are kind of shoved to the side. I just think it's something to think about, looking at my own reading habits. How many female-female books have I read? Is it because of my choice of books, or is it because of the availability of those novels? Just some soul searching to do, but I did enjoy Red, White and Royal Blue, and I'm not going to apologise for that. It was smutty. There was so much smut, and it was consensual, and there wasn't emotional manipulation, at least from my perspective. So after reading that crap, Red, White and Royal Blue felt like a breath of fresh air, and I just really, really enjoyed it, team. That's all there is to it. It was a happy book. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I liked it. I still feel like I am a ghost. Lockdown, I swear. Okay, then I did another themed reading vlog. Honestly, August was the month of themed reading vlogs, late July, whatever, where I read wrapped books. Hang on, I'm going to pan to show you. That top left corner is all of my wrapped books I had from the whole week, and I read some of them in a themed vlog, and the two I actually managed to finish. These two I did also have Deception Point by Dan Brown that I unwrapped, but I just never got to it, and it is still a book I really wanted to read, so it's up there with my other Dan Browns. But talking about these ones, first of all, Shadow of the Lions. Oh, weird. Sorry about that, guys. My camera just stopped filming. Okay, what was I talking about though? I was talking about Shadow of the Lions. This book was really, really good because of the dark academic vibes. I had to put it down every 50 or so pages just to breathe, much like I did with Starless Sea. Not because it was bad, but just because I really needed to let everything ruminate. It was just such a good novel. I also really liked the last 150 pages. I just feel like the pacing of this novel was really good. It just started out testing the waters, putting your feet in there, and then all of a sudden everything escalates so quickly. I will say though, for this novel, hang on, I just realised, triggers. Oh, so Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants, triggers for death by cancer, like loss of loved ones. And then the rest of them, honestly, the biggest trigger is just bloomin' men. But yeah, triggers in this one for depression and suicide, and I think there's a mention of rape, and there's stuff at the end that I know triggers are not a spoiler, but if I told you the trigger, it would spoil the ending where everything kind of culminates. So just heads up, going into this novel, the ending of this, the revelation itself is a trigger. So yes. And then this one was a big surprise for me, Away Through the Woods. Now, when I was reading the reviews on Goodreads, of which there aren't many, people said it was slow, boring, and nothing happened. But I went into this expecting a classic, and I think a lot of contemporary classics, I know that's a oxymoron, but you get what I mean, are slow, boring, and not much happens. So, don't hate me, I haven't read many of the classics on my shelf. Ooh, voice crack. But I actually liked this one. It gave me Studio Ghibli vibes. It gave me like the Soot Sprite vibe from that film studio. It was just a beautiful novel, and honestly the cover does this book so much justice, because this cover is what this novel feels like, and it was just a really quaint story that I enjoyed. So yes, also triggers in that one just for death in general. Next up, and buddy read, this is You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hoggle, that I did, sorry I'm so itchy today. That I did with Casey through Dot the Pages, and this was just another romance. Lots of romance on my shelf today actually. That I really enjoyed. I gave it 5 stars, absolutely loved it. It's very much a book for people who like enemies to lovers tropes. So we've got 2 people who are affianced, and then they realise that they don't really love each other anymore, and then instead of breaking it off because there's lots of money put into it, they kind of try to force the other person to break up with them by being dicks, and it's just hilarious ultimately. And then of course they start to fall back in love via being dicks and having a laugh with each other. So really, really beautiful book. I will say though, the first 100 pages was a bit hard for me to get fully invested in, because it felt like the writing was a bit jarring. It was a writing style issue for me with this one, but once our main characters started to get feisty with each other and it got humorous, I really dug it, and the last like 2/3 of it more than made up for the first few pages of my inability to get stuck in triggers. Just a really, really overbearing mother figure, and a friend who's a right twat. I don't know, is that a swear word? I've always just thought it was like slang. I don't know, I apologise if that offended anyone. But yeah, a really good book. Highly recommend if you're in the mood for a funny, quick, just enemies to lovers vibe of a novel. Next up we have an ACK. This is a copy of the reading list. This is what the actual cover looks like, and I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. How do I explain this? The story itself is beautiful. I really love the idea. I love the characters, but I was bored at times, and I always feel like I'm a bit, I overcompensate when I read ACK copies. In wanting to be honest with you guys, I then become overly critical. So just be aware, like maybe I am being overly critical, but I just found it a bit boring at times. It took me quite a while to read it, but I do still think it's a nice story. All right, let me break it down. Pros, I think the idea of having a elderly main character bonding with a teenager is beautiful, and we do not see enough of that representation. Speaking of representation, there's lots of it in here, and people of all body shapes and sizes, as well as different ethnicities. Con, the different people in here, the different perspectives, because it's not all just from one perspective, it swaps up. Got a little bit I'll say it got a little bit annoying because I just wanted to hear from our two main characters' perspectives, and there's these little bits put in which, whilst they are cool, I don't feel like they added heaps. So that's a critique from that behalf. And then also the pace obviously was a bit hard for me, but I still think it's a lovely book. I should also let you know massive triggers in this novel for depression, suicide, anxiety, losing friends. It's a hard book to read as well. It is emotionally taxing. Anything else to say about this? Oh, yeah. It does talk about other classic books like Life of Pi and Pride and Prejudice and some other classics, and so if you're not familiar with them, it will ever so slightly spoil those novels for you. Alright, and then we get to the books I've read so far during this lockdown period. Felix Ever After is one of the first novels I read during this lockdown period, and I have decided to give it 3 stars. I was just checking. I think this book, and I'm just going to try to summarise what I said in the vlog because I feel like you guys got me. I feel like this book is important, but it wasn't a good book objectively. Having a black, trans, queer character, important. We need these perspectives. But the romance itself didn't feel believable to me. It felt like how do I word this? I mean, I also loved the representation and how queer this book is. We see people from many different sexual orientations, but there's also drama in here, which I think took away from the main messages. For example, like friendship drama, and I just found it a little bit dark. And I'm not at all saying that these books should always be super happy, because that's not a realistic portrayal of people like Felix's life experiences. But when I say it felt dark, I don't feel like the hope we were given, the positives we were given, felt realistic for me anyway. And as soon as a novel doesn't feel realistic, I lose some of my enjoyment for it. I just want to say again, 3 stars isn't necessarily a bad rating, guys. It just means solid book. I would recommend if someone asked me for a recommendation to do with this sort of stuff. But for me, it wasn't a book that I was really hyped up about. All right, I then read... Wait, no, this is out of order. I then read My Sister the Serial Killer, which I quite enjoyed. I gave this one 4 stars. Yep, I did. Just checking. I gave this one 4 stars. It was a really quick read. I read it in a space of maybe 4 hours. I just sat down and didn't stop reading. I think it was a really cool premise of a novel. I loved the writing style. I just loved everything about it, except the ending, which is why it dropped a star for me. There's a lot of angst between Kareed and her sister Ayula. There's a lot of tension between them. I don't know how to explain this without spoiling it, so I'm going to put up like a little spoiler here. It'll be really mild, team, but essentially at the end I really wanted Kareed to snap. instead what happens is it just felt a little bit anticlimactic, and I just wanted a bit more. But yeah, I do recommend if you want a quick, fast-paced thriller of a novel, which is like Frozen, like Disney's Frozen, but with like serial killer vibes. Huh. Alright, we're almost there, team. 2 more. I read Stephen King's The Gunslinger. If you're like, girl, what about all these Kings on your own shelf you haven't read? I know. But I read The Gunslinger instead, which is book 1 in the Dark Tower series, which is one of King's most famous book series. Has he actually written many series? I don't know, but Tyler's picked this one up for me at the library and I finally managed to get around to it. And this novel, I've given a 3.5 stars. I tried to stay away from half stars, but I just couldn't. It's a really hard one for me to review. In the beginning of this book, Stephen King says that he was inspired by a movie he saw which really blew out the proportions of space and time, and he wanted to replicate that feeling, and he did. This novel is disorientating on purpose, and for that, like, respect. But it meant I didn't fully understand what was happening all the time, which meant that I wasn't fully invested in the novel. There's a lot of time differences, like our character loses track of time. There's a lot of there's just a lot that goes on. The time itself, like, jumps back and forwards in time, so it's a little bit of a, what do you call it, I'll try to find a picture and insert it here. Yeah, the thing is, I feel like a hypocrite when I'm writing this book. I really loved how I didn't know everything because I got to piece things together, but there wasn't enough things pieced together for me to fully get into this book. So that's why it's resulted in a 3.5 stars. I am intrigued though to read book 2. I said in my vlog, this really feels like a prequel to the series, just like the Witcher books. Where are they at the moment? I think I rearranged, hiding behind this book here. The first few novels in the Witcher series are like a build-up to Geralt's story. I feel like this is a build-up to the Gunslinger story because at the end there's a big time jump, kind of, and stuff happens, and I feel like the rest of the series is now going to flow on. So I am intrigued to see, like, what happens next. And then we get to the last book, which was disappointing, guys. Oh my god, I wanted to love this book. I adored Serpent and Dove. I gave Serpent and Dove 5 stars, but this one is a meager 3 stars. So again, not bad, but not great either. The first 150 pages is all build up. We're in book 2 now. We know who the characters are. We know, like, what the tensions are. We know the mother and daughter relationship is hardly even a relationship. Instead, I was given pages upon pages of, we should form an alliance. Let's have sex instead. I wasn't interested. Then, when things started happening, it was a little bit, too little too late for me. I wanted it from the very get-go. Also, I really despise when book 1s are so heavily based on the romance of character A and B, and then book 2, character A and B, they fall out. It's like, nah. No thank you. If your first book is all about the love they share, don't make them start to hate each other. So yeah, I don't know if that's a spoiler, but the relationship in this book, it's not as positive as it is in the first book. It's just frustrating to me. I did enjoy seeing Coco have more of a appearance. I feel like in the first book she was, a little bit helpless, like written to be a little bit helpless. But in this one, I feel like her and her sisters, they stand up and they're a bit powerful in themselves. Although again, there is a little bit where Coco and her sisters, who are the darker skinned, I should say, like physically, they are described as being, darker than our main characters. That's going to be a spoiler, kind of cast them in a bit of a negative light again, which could be a little bit controversial, could be a little bit but I am still going to read book 3. It was suggested to me that I do the last book, which is the silver one, I can't remember what it's called, as I What the Hype episode, so keep an eye out because I might do book 3 as a What the Hype episode. Okay, I feel like I've been speaking really, really fast, but I've been trying to get through those as quickly as possible. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you haven't already, check out the COVID Diaries. I've been vlogging my way through COVID lockdown. I'm filming this on day 8. I think I've already lost track of time. Mr. Gunslinger has nothing on me. Yeah, okay. I'm a go now. Thanks for making it to the end. Bye bye, guys.